Deleted session, December 15, 1980. Now, good evening. Robert should read that session. Love noted for October 22, 1973. She said, and once immediately previous. The attitudes still stand to some important degree. The contract represented his own interpretation of his private reality, of course. Yet they also represent the main issues involved right now in your society at large. The same issues underline your own attitudes. The tension between effort and relaxation, discipline and spontaneity has applied, say, in the creative area as far as painting is concerned. Robert set out, of course, to handle his own purpose and challenges, but he chose those in the context of your world, so that in encountering them personally, he would encounter them for your society as well. In such ways, the species does handle psychological and psychic issues. Everything I said recently about the disclaimer stands. Be aware, however, of the subtle reassurances from Framework 2. The news program invitation, which places you in a context, however small, of national interest, an invitation that you did not quote. These, plus many excellent letters of late, should show you, of course, the beneficial aspects of your work that you can at times overlook. You have at the very least a very large extended family, people whose lives you have taught for the better. The ability to reach people in such a fashion is a gift. The disclaimer itself will be creatively utilized, something else that can escape your notice when you become too short-sighted. I am still in the process of trying to teach you both that trade is also a spiritual and physical imperative. It is indeed a condition of biological life. This, of course, despite all of your upbringing. That kind of trade is behind all of man's curiosity, for without a trade in the world, he would never have the courage to explore it. When you make love, you are entrusting yourself to someone else, making a spiritual and biological statement of openness that is understood through all the levels of your experience, even to the cellular. Under such loving conditions, healing energies are spontaneously released. In its own fashion, such acts of love are beneficially related with the spontaneous behavior of animals. That is, you can behave to some extent at such times with a creature-like sense of threat and spontaneity, and of loving openness of a kind that animals at their best often display. Again, I mentioned that you could both benefit far more from more such encounters. They generate trust. Your morning discussion concerning Rubert's past was also beneficial, for it is good to remind yourselves of your own backgrounds, rather than ever comparing yourselves with other people, whose own backgrounds may have little to do with yours. You have both done remarkably well from that viewpoint. When you seem to suffer in contrast to the development or situation of any other specific or generalized persons, it is when you are trying to live up to artificial picture of yourselves, of people who should have been as knowledgeable years ago as they are now, and who therefore now should be at much greater stages of development. In other words, you often expect too much of yourself. This makes you dwell upon any difficulties, so that any blemishes are overly emphasized, any accomplishments taken for granted, and you are left with a sense of disapproval. Then you lack trust in yourselves because you try to live up to images that are not connected with your backgrounds and often ignore them. When you have learned things as nothing because you forget how your attitudes change. In a fashion, you recognize much of this in your morning discussion about Ruber's problem, but it applies to each of you. The idea of Ruber doing some work in the near future on rich beds is therefore a good one. Lovemaking reunites you with your own past, and the unconscious bodily memory carries you backward to your earliest responses to your own body and that of others. To some extent, then, the child, with all of his wonder about his own body, is aroused in each act of lovemaking. Whatever its variety, with those memories come feelings of biological exuberance, the body's fate in itself, all highly important and far more therapeutic than is ever realized in your society. Again, it goes without saying that in your situations, you largely overlook such benefits. Ruber's remarks in his essay on love apply here, in regard to its specific nature. That is, it arouses memories from your own most intimate moments in the past and therefore, in its own way, records the development of ideas and attitudes that you might otherwise completely overlook. You had friends deeply disappointed in marriages, and the relationships Ram noted, Sue and Claire. They said, your own relationship is itself quite extraordinary, precisely in the light of your own backgrounds, not as you think those backgrounds should have been, but as they were. When you act what you did not understand when you were young, what you know now, you are ignoring the validity of your own past to some extent, and denying the accomplishments that have resulted, because it seems that you should now be much further on, so that you create a kind of artificial self who began where you are now, and with whom it seems you can never catch up. At Rupert's end, it almost seems as if he had our material at hand magically without effort, and therefore should have put it to use at once, learning the lessons of half a lifetime in a few years, and graduating to solve all of his own problems and half of the world's as well. Against that image, of course, he feels inadequate, and of course, such an image would make him lose faith in himself to some degree. So it is very important that you realize how well you have both done in many areas of activity, and that you reinforce each other in those directions. If you did, other issues would take care of themselves. There is no need saying Ruber would be in better physical condition, perhaps, if the psychic development had not happened. Since that development was a part of his natural growth processes. While it may sound unrealistic, the fact remains that much of Ruber's problems are indeed caused by a constant comparison with the self that he is, and the self that he and you think he should be, and to some extent by too much concern about what the world may think or not think. Again, you have evidence of his body's willingness to change for the better. His faith is growing, and both of you can help reinforce it. The sessions on work discuss the relaxation and work aspects thoroughly, and should not be forgotten. Many of your accomplishments are allowed to fade when you do not pay attention to the large bulk of your mail, for it does involve people whose lives you are indeed helping to change for the better. Love-making, like dreams, returns you to yourself and initiates beneficial framework to activity. It regenerates your energies and indeed clears the passageways for creativity. End of session. Appropriate. Ra said, thank you, very good. They said, a fond good evening. Ra said, thank you, good night.